I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would someone move item 1.02, please? Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed and abstentions? Pass 6-0-0. This brings us to the evacuation procedure. So in the event of an emergency, I would ask everyone to move to either the door on that end of the room or this end of the room, and in a calm fashion, and please move away from the building. Would you now join us in the pledge to our flag? Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for the correction. 7-0-0. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public forum, we have 2 persons signed up this evening, and the first person is, I hope I say it right, Megan or Megan? Megan Kibe. And do we have the clock?
Go ahead.
I don't know, does somebody have the clock?
Yep.
We're not doing this then, all right.
Got it right here.
Okay. Mrs. Perry can give you like when you have a minute left, maybe a hand up or
Yep.
something? Okay. All right.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Kibe. I live at 66 Old Maple Ave in Fulton, New York. I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. I came to speak to you tonight about the updated COVID-19 safety protocols, and more specifically, masking. I ask that you give parents the choice rather than make a blanket district mandate. In preparation of how I was going to use my 3 minutes, I thought about talking about the negligible transmission rates among children and in schools. Or maybe talk about the recent study that shows lower COVID case rates in unmasked schools versus those that required them. Or maybe talk about the lack of evidence that masks are even effective in stopping the spread. But instead, I'd like to talk to you about the heart of the matter, our kids. By the way, I would be happy to provide any of the aforementioned materials or data later if you guys would like it. Now back to the most important thing, our children. As educators, we know that students learn best in an environment where they feel comfortable, welcome, unconditionally loved, and secure. A least restrictive environment, if you will. Masking and separating our students is the complete opposite of this theory. Students are not comfortable. They are hot. They are sweaty. They are breathing in their exhausted air and any other germ or bacteria that may have made its way into that mask that day. Their ears hurt from the straps, and the mask itself is its own distraction. They can't see the smiles on the faces of those that are there to love and care for them. I understand kids are resilient, and in the toughest times, these great educators were still able to forge relationships and get by. But our kids who have already overcome so much deserve for us to speak up for them. They miss seeing their teachers' faces, their smiles, their genuine love and support written all over their face. We have neighboring districts that have already stated they will start the year without masks or social distancing. I am hoping that you follow in their footsteps and do what's right for our students. I am asking that you leave masking up to parent choice. Everyone's level of comfort is different, and parents know what's best for their own children.
Halfway, Megan.
I have one last statement. Is that okay? Okay. So let's make this school year so amazing, our kids will never forget it.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
And next we have Jennifer Standish.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Standish, and I have 5 children that go to school in this district, so I'm very heavily invested in this. I have a child in the elementary school, 2 going into the middle school, and 2 in the high school. And I also wanted to say I understand and see how hard you're trying and you're struggling through this. It hasn't been easy for you, and I see that, and I appreciate all your hard work and effort in this. You should have received a packet from CNY Informed on July 15 with documentation and scientific reports supporting mine and many others' beliefs that masks do not do not stop the spread of COVID, and in fact are harmful to our children's health. Everyone here and in our community has either had COVID or has had the vaccine or has also had the opportunity to be vaccinated at this point. We have all watched the constant inconsistencies and been forced to follow the CDC and health department guidelines and mandates for almost 2 years now. We have stood by and watched as our children have fallen behind. They've dealt with depression, anxiety, headaches, hyperventilation, and fatigue, first from just their entire lives being shut down, and then the constant wearing of masks. We should all be concerned about the youngest of our children that have lost precious time missing out on the security of a loving, trusting face and smile of their teacher and staff at school every single day. They have missed social cues and the pronunciation that is learned only from watching you speak. Every adult and teacher that works in this school has either had the vaccine or had it made available to them at this point. There is no reason for masks, part-time school, or lockdown measures. Children are no more at risk of COVID than the seasonal flu. If we continue to make these decisions about masking, random testing and screening and protocols that are damaging to our children psychologically and physically, we all as parents will be forced to make a decision about the public school system and whether we can keep our kids in it. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes those that are signed up to speak this evening. Would someone move item 1.06, please?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Pass 601. Item 1.07, please. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Pass 700. Item 1.08. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Pass 700. Item 1.09. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? Pass 700. Are there any questions under President's report regarding any of the upcoming meetings? Any questions with regard to the convention? And now, board committees. So I wanted to have a conversation tonight. We had the list, and I lost my place here. Are there any questions about the committees? So let me see here. I'm going to go. So I'm going to ask, do we have any interest in policy? Who would like to serve on policy committee? I have one. I have two. Okay, well, we have Jen. I think it would be great for Jen to be on. And then what I would like to suggest is a third and alter that policy to allow for 3, so perhaps there's always 2 board members present if the rest of you are in agreement, because we can do up to 3 without creating any difficulties.
And Brenda, you? Okay.
Are we all good? Jim?
Yeah. So is it Jen, Brenda,
Jen, Brenda, and Lynn.
and Lynn?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Jean, you have all that, right? I'm counting on you. Okay. So the next policy is audit, and by policy, the president serves, and then I need 2 other persons. Okay. All right.
Jess, you really going to do that one?
Jess? All right, Jeff and Brenda and Lynn, you want to work it out which one of you wants to? They can do it all. Okay, so Brenda, Jess, and myself. Okay. Now, the Communications Committee is it's 3 board members, and it's the newer version of the Communications Committee, so it's more than just budget time.
It's the extension of the Strategic Coherence
Right.
Plan. Communication Committee, we had felt when we put together the Strategic Coherence Plan, that was one of the strands under leadership. Remember, we developed that whole communications plan, and there's a committee that's actually been established, and I think it's great because it has a very good mix of teachers, parents, and board members, and administrators and teachers. It's a very nice balanced committee, so that's what that is. We meet approximately 3 to 4 times a year, once a marking period is what we're thinking about.
So, any interest in Lynn? Dave? Do I have a third? All right. And Jess?
Thank you.
Wellness Committee meets 4 times a year or more if needed. And that's 1 board member.
What was that one?
The Wellness Committee you've done?
Yeah.
You want to continue that, Tim?
Yep.
Okay, does anyone want to wrestle Tim for that? All right, then Mr. Crandall is going to do wellness, continue that service. Health, safety, and facilities.
Are these going to be virtual? That's how I answer that question. I know we decided on
Yes.
to keep them that way.
The feedback we received, policy is a good one to have. And what we found was we actually had great attendance at the online meetings. We got very proficient at this. And I will tell you, the one that probably was the most, they're all very valuable. The health and safety, we went from having around 5 or 6 people consistently in the 20s or upper 20s, low 30s at some of those meetings. So I think we learned, that's one thing we learned from COVID, that these committees actually got more representation and more input, and it was more flexible. So if somebody couldn't leave work or something, they could actually get it from where they were.
Or call in on their car on their way home,
So
I know
the
people
answer
do.
to that is, we've talked to each committee, obviously we'd have that discussion, but right now we're leaning more toward virtual if that's the way everybody would do, because they were effective.
All right, so I had Dave, and I had Brenda. Did you have your hand up?
That's okay.
All right, okay, so Lynn and Dave and Jen. Okay, then I have representation to Oswego County School Boards. Dave's been filling that. Is that something you still want to do, David?
I can
Or-
attend the July meeting because we haven't figured out if there would be someone else doing it.
Right, so is anyone interested, let me ask, in serving it? And that doesn't meet every month. They meet several times a year, though. More if if you have some kind of activity, you might meet more often, and they meet in varied places, sometimes Mexico, sometimes Fulton. All right, I think Dave still wants to continue in that capacity. All right. And we're good. The voting delegates were already decided for the benefit of our 2 newest board members. That decision was made a couple of meetings ago for the convention representation. Those names had to go in to NISBA. All righty. I think that concludes my report. It's over to you, Mr. Polvino.
Well, good evening, everybody. So, school readiness. Those of you that are new to the board, the last week in August, that first week in September, right before schools open, we actually provide the opportunity to tour all of the buildings and look at the readiness. Generally the director of facilities, as well as me, along with the head custodian in the buildings. Well, actually, they're very proud. It's a great opportunity for you to really see the work behind the scenes. One of the first things I noticed when I came to Fulton was like, how can we have such old buildings that look absolutely so amazing? And I figured that out very close. The level of pride that's taken at each of the sites. So that's going on that first week. So on Wednesday, September 1st, Volney, then Lanigan, and then G. Ray Bodley. We will meet at Volney at 5 p.m., and then we'll go to Lanigan, and then that's the evening where GRB is doing their evening of freshman orientation, is it this year? Yep. That evening, so we actually get to see some parents when we're actually touring the building. We see a few parents around. It kind of times it just about right. And then on Thursday evening, the 2nd of September, we'll be doing Fulton Junior High, Granby, Fairgrave, and the Education Center. We try to do Erie Street or the Education Center each year. And since the Education Center is rented to City BOCES, felt like the 2 floors, this would be a good year for us. I believe last year we went to Erie Street. But I think with the level of use at the Ed Center, it would be good for us to take a tour of that building that evening. So what we generally do as it gets closer in the daily update, let me know who's coming. So if we have 2 coming that night, then we'll know we're not waiting. We'll get going. If we have 4 or 5 coming, that's terrific. All 7, that's terrific. It's really it's a great evening. It's an opportunity for the teams in the buildings to share their work, and for you to actually point some things out. For example, Mr. Crandall was after me for 3 years about the stage curtains at Volney. And they finally got fixed, and then COVID came. So we have really beautiful curtains whenever we have an event there that people can actually see. That's actually been taken care of. We had louver doors that actually were dangerous, and it took us a while to get that taken care of. So Tim pointed that out enough years, we got that taken care of. But there's other things that we've done that we've picked up when we walk, because sometimes new sets of eyes allows us to do
Lanigan
it.
parking.
What's that?
The Lanigan
The
parking.
Lanigan parking, the Lanigan parking lot, and the new drop-off zones for parents and their kids.
For
So
safety reasons.
lots of good things have evolved from those walk-arounds. So again, if anybody's interested in those evenings, just let Jean know, and then we'll have that locked in that evening.
Brian, and we're
Yes.
going to follow, so if someone is late, it's going to be
We
in
will
this
follow
order?
this order, and in the past, what's happened is I always have my phone with me 24/7, and you just text me and say, Brian, I'm running late. I'll meet you at Fairgrave. Okay. And I'll say, well, we're almost done here at Granby, and we'll see you there in 10 minutes. That kind of thing. Works out really well. So if you can't be right there at 5, don't sweat it. It's fine. Just let us know, and we can work with that.
So Jean, I'm a yes. I don't know if anybody else
So
knows
are you
tonight.
a yes for both evenings?
Yes.
Okay.
And it probably should be added that we're required to do this once a year,
Yes.
Yep.
and for the new board members.
Thank you, David.
Oh, thank you.
So-
If you just let Jean know, and Brenda, you're a yes for both? Okay. Okay.
Great.
Is it Jess?
And David is, yep, that helps.
Janice.
Jen is too?
Yep.
How about you, Tim?
I'll meet up.
Tim will find us.
Tim will find us. Okay. And Lynn?
I will most likely be there.
Okay. Thank you.
I have to let you know, I think something's
Sure.
going on there.
Yep. No worries. So thank you. It's always
That's all right.
one of those evenings. It's great to walk around and see what our kids gonna be going into and whatnot. So.
People that already know it's good to catch them right now makes Jean's life a little easier.
Well, that's why we kind of went around. So. All right. All set? All righty. Well, one of the things we want to share tonight is the reopening update as of August 10th. And I want to thank Megan and Jennifer. Thank you for sharing this evening. It means a lot, and your insights are very valuable, and I appreciate that. This has probably been, actually a former board member wrote me a note before, who was on the original board, Barb Hubbard, wrote me a note, and she was setting up a scholarship fund for a family member and was asking for some things, and she said, did I remember her? And, it was funny because I wrote back and I said, I'll always remember the board that selected me. I'll be very grateful for this opportunity. And so I was thinking about that, as we're here this evening, and if I was never prepared to do what we did for the last 18 months. And what we've done, is we've spent a lot of time, and I always want to make sure that we recognize our staff and our students and what we accomplished last year. Let's not forget what we accomplished. And some of my colleagues and my friends, I was disappointed in some of the things that happened in other districts. But what I'm proud of is at the end of the year, we had 5 days a week for elementary kids. There were districts that didn't have 5 days a week for their kids. They didn't have 4 days of the week for their kids. They had 2 days a week for their kids in this county. And so I think that's an important for us to remember. I think the other piece is we started to press it. We expanded. We changed our master schedule here at the high school in January. Nobody does that. We did it. We also cohorted. We did everything that we were supposed to do. And I wrote down the word, before, and I was just thinking about things. We used a measurable approach. And a measurable approach was we took all of that guidance and we took some of the musts and some of the shoulds, and we were one of the districts that did a musts last summer. And we took a little heat for that. Ironically, about 4 weeks into the school year, there were 3 districts in other counties that contacted us for all of our information. And they asked us what we did because they had all been shut down and quarantined. And so I took great pride in that. The other piece that we need to remember is we went longer in December other than one other school district in our county with kids in person. And that was one of the smallest districts. And, I take great pride in the fact that our staff and our students stepped up. I hate this thing. I don't enjoy this. Nobody does. But at the same time, we had some great accomplishments. And, we haven't shared with you our data from last year. We're kind of still sifting through it. But we didn't have as much of a fallback as some of our peers. And when we've seen some of the data, and you've seen the Ockley data, which is the Oswego County Literacy Initiative, we did a little bit better. We were on the positive end of those, and I think we're really set up for some really positive things. So with that, I want to remember that our staff and students did an amazing lift on our administrators, and everybody last year was absolutely amazing. So I always like to preface that because we're so rolling ahead with everything else that we forget what we accomplished as a district through some very difficult times. And there were some tough moments. And this is one of those. You would have thought by August 10th, we would be in good shape. But so our opening goals, and right now, and that's as of August 10th. And what's ironic is we worked on this and finished this up yesterday. And this morning at 9:55, we received an email from Commissioner Rosa from the New York State Education Department, which is noted on the next page after we'll turn it in a minute. And I'll go over that in just a second. So our goal is to maximize our capacity to provide safe, healthy, in-person learning environment for all of our kids and staff. And that's 5 days a week. And we'll go over that in just a moment. And then to provide a highest quality instructional and social emotional supports possible. We need to get our kids back in front of us. We need to make sure that they're getting all the supports. I think all of the monies that we have coming in, you've heard it, previous presentation, we've added a lot of social emotional supports. We've added instructional supports for our teachers, coaching, things like that. We've also added academic intervention teachers, lots of supports at lots of different levels to ensure that our kids get a kickstart right off the beginning and we get them rolling. And my goal, I'd love to see us back where we were in January of 20 in January of 22. If we can have that kind of data, we were on the cusp of something very special. At that point in time, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, we had 13% of our kids that were at below or well below benchmark at that time. That was about right? Is that correct, Dan? Yep, 13%. That means 13% of our kids were not at benchmark. That was pretty impressive, and I was so frustrated when we didn't get that next data set. So there's some good things. We learned a lot during that time. So next slide, please. So some key information that I think about 24/7 and the team constantly thinks about. We serve over 3,250 students and their families. We have over 630 staff. That number is actually higher than that. Oswego County is designated as a substantial transmission area as of 8/8. That happened on Sunday. And the information is there because we were asked. Substantial is 50 to 100 cases per 100,000. That's not our number. We don't set these. We don't pick these. This is what's going on. And today, Onondaga County this afternoon went into the high range. Actually, they're now in a red range as well. So, obviously, we look at all of those things. Next slide, please. I can't see that far. Isn't that pretty bad? Let's see. Wow. Guess I need to start wearing my glasses. The NICED update on August 10th, and this was this morning. I'm not sure if you saw this. Today, NISPA NISBA sent out an onboard to all board members highlighting Commissioner Rose's letter. It was New York State Education Department has communicated that they will provide guidance on COVID protocols for schools in the near future in the absence of guidance from the New York State Department of Health or Office or Governor. So what this means is, and they also told us to continue to use CDC and American Academy of Pediatrics guidance in the interim, which is exactly what we've done to prepare for this evening, a month out from school, just under a month out from school. So again, things could change over time. I'd love to see these numbers drop right through the floor and just get over this. So we're watching that very closely. It's frustrating that it's been another week when we haven't received any guidance from the New York State Education Department or the state, but apparently some things are going on in Albany today that probably took preference over schools. So next slide is the school opening guidance, and it references, and this will be on our website as well. You can click on that for the guidance. There's a link to both of those. But what they anticipate, or what we're anticipating for the September opening is at this moment in time, and again, things can always change if the data changes. And I will tell you that I've been in conferences. I was on vacation last week, but I had multiple meetings. I met with the Department of Health. That's one thing with Google Meet. You can do things you never did before, so you can go on vacation and actually work even more. And so we had the opportunity with the Department of Health last Wednesday. We met with Dr. Morgan on Friday, who's our medical director for this school district. I met with the CSOs, which is the other superintendents in the county, and then we had another meeting with the superintendents this morning from all the different schools. So have a pretty good feeling about where everybody's at in our county as of, 7 o'clock on the 10th of August. So all pre-K-12 students will attend in-person learning 5 days a week with a full schedule. Masks will be required for all individuals for all indoor events, regardless of vaccination status. Masks not required for outdoor events. Masks required for all individuals when on buses. Ironically, that is the one piece of guidance that was given with the summer camp and the summer guidance for schools. That buses, it was required on the buses, and it was highly recommended this summer in our programs, which are concluding over the next 2 weeks. I believe our 5-8 programs. We have this week and next week, K through 4. We had a successful run through the 30th of July. And all of our kids were masked. We were very successful. As you know, with my correspondences, we did have a couple breakthrough cases where vaccinated staff had positives, which resulted in quarantines of some staff this summer. So it's definitely in our midst. Physical distancing of 3 foot indoors. This is key for us. If you remember, this was 6 feet in the past, which is what resulted in us not being able to get all of our children in classes. At 3 feet, we should be able to get all of our kids in the classrooms, and we'll monitor that very closely. That's one of the reasons the masking kind of comes back in, because we'll talk about quarantining in a moment, but the quarantining is still very much alive. It's very much out there, and we'll go over that in a moment, because what I don't want to see is yo-yoing back and forth in and out of school with groups of kids. And we had some kids that had multiple quarantines last year, and we had cohorted and we had done other things. So, and then contact tracing quarantines is indicated by the Department of Health. We also, and as I mentioned, it's consistent with our colleagues in the area. There are some districts that are making some other choices at the time. I spoke to one of the superintendents today who indicated that they were doing choice. However, he's made it very clear in his community that if they go to the high, they will move to masks. So that was their way of kind of dealing with that. And we would do the same. If it goes down, we could look at other alternatives. So again, we monitor the data on an ongoing basis. And then consultation with Oswego County Health, and their recommendations are also consistent. Next slide, please.
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
about the 3 feet?
Yep.
Somewhere, I keep reading, is it 3 feet for everything, or is it 6 feet for music? And
Well, I'll take you right there in a moment.
There we go.
I anticipate you, Miss Griffin, too often.
Brian, I have a question also.
Sure.
Busings, are we working with the bus company on how we're going to get kids on buses? Will there be 3 feet for buses also?
So what we'll do is we have to get more kids on buses to be able to fill them, but it'll be 1 to every seat initially as they get on the bus, which is 21. And then what we'll do is the latter part of the run, as we're getting toward the end of the run, that's when you can put, families will sit together. That will result in us not getting ourselves into quarantine situations if anybody turns out to be a positive. Because that was one of the things we were very successful with. I believe our COVID coordinator did a very nice job working. We'll still do seating charts, all of those things. Those are all the pieces that kept us with kids coming in. We got very good at that towards the end of the year, so I think that would be something we'll continue. So yes, the answer to that question is yes.
And could you speak to the mask being, if they don't come to the bus with a mask?
Yep.
That question?
Yeah, each bus last year should have had a package on every bus, should have had we called it, was like a baggie. Chris, it was like a baggie, right? And it was full, it had child-sized masks and adult-sized masks. It also had hand sanitizer in that. And that was available. Ms. Griffin made me aware, apparently there was a bus or something last year where a driver said, go back in the house and get your mask. Shouldn't happen. We have that all set on the buses, and we have masks in reserves to be able to do that.
Are we doing temperature check too?
At this point in time, that is our plan, but we're still working through that. We had very few identified, if any, with the temperature checks last year. We would still do the daily screenings. That's also later. You guys are great. You're well-versed. That'll be a little bit later here in a slide. Oh. Oh. Okay. You want me to? Can they hear my answers? Okay. So far we've had a question with respect to busing and volume and how we would approach that, numbers of kids on a bus and the way we go about seating and screenings. And the other question, Ms. Griffin, you were going to ask a question?
I did.
Remind me what your question was.
Oh, you want me to repeat? I
Yeah.
asked about the mask being available.
Yes, the masks on the bus.
That brought to my attention.
Okay. Thank you. The next section is athletics and extracurricular clubs. It'll be the exact what we did this spring at the end of the year. So masks not required outdoors. Music and physical education follow the 6 feet of physical distancing indoors still. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So all of this is as of today. So we plan on school schedules. We'll go back to the full days again. That was some feedback that we'd received from parents throughout the course of the spring. I also want to reinforce that we did a number of surveys throughout the course of this year. We pulled out all of those surveys and the feedback throughout the course of the year as we were planning and preparing and putting this together. So one of the big things all spring was, can't you extend the day longer? Can't we get back to our normal day again? So the answer to that is we'll go back. Pre-K is 8:30 to 11, 12:45 to 3:15. Grade K through 6 will go back to 8:30 to 3:30, and 7 through 12, 7:35 to 2:35. Okay. Jerry, do you know if they're still hearing? I'm not hearing it in the room. I just want to make sure that my mic is working. Okay, thank you. Yeah, our meeting takes precedent, and we are streaming live, so anybody from the press, you could take all of our YouTube. So, all right. Because we're starting, I was wondering, I thought it was chairs moving. It was that. Okay. All right. Athletics and extracurricular.
Can I just ask a question really quick?
Sure.
About temperature checks. So we're not doing temperature checks this year? Not when
We just
parents
haven't built
drop
into the
off?
plan yet. We may still be doing. We just
okay.
haven't finished yet.
Oh, I wasn't sure if, okay.
No, we just haven't. We're still having conversations. I was talking to some of the superintendents today. Some are continuing it, some weren't. So we're trying to figure that out
still
here.
figuring it out.
But there will
Okay.
definitely be a screening process And that, in all probability, would include the temperature checks as well. But we're still processing through that.
And the caveat is unless the health department.
Can you talk into your, Robin, you got it?
One caveat would be unless we get direction from the health department that we have to do it, I guess. Everything changes like on a dime lately, so I can't stress that
I
enough.
guess what I would say is there will be a screening process, and in all probability, it will include the temperature checks, is what most of the districts are continuing to do that.
Okay, I was just confused. We were talking about busing
Yeah,
and
we
not
rolled
having
into
the
two
temperature
different-
check, so I was just wondering if the parents would want to know if dropping their kids off, if they would have to do the temperature checks as well.
Right now, we're looking at either we would screen the kids, if we decide to do the temperature checks, we could either do them as they get on the buses, or we can, as they arrive, when they get off the bus, we could do it that way as well. We're looking at logistics. Staffing was a challenge last year, the way we did that, but we will have a good screening system in place prior to opening. We had a good system last year, so we'll sit down as a team and just finalize exactly what that'll look
Okay.
like.
I would start the temperature check. Like, if a child's waiting out for the bus today, and it's 90-something degrees, of course their temperature is gonna be elevated. Or in the wintertime, if it's 0 out, of course their temperature is gonna be low. They could have a fever of 102, and it's 0 out, you know. And I did talk to doctors about this, and they confirmed that.
Yep. So that's why we're taking a good look at the temperature checks in consultation with the Department of Health. But that's one of the screening devices that we used last year, and we didn't have any identifications. However, it was a good screening. I think it's a good reminder that we are screening each and every day as kids come in. So we'll finalize that, and that'll be out in the next couple of weeks as we start to really hone in and tighten things down and hopefully get further guidance from the state of New York as
Mr.
well.
Palvino, do you think it might be that parents and staff will have to do the check-in online?
Yes,
Do
that's on a
COVID
future
screening?
slide too. I just haven't got
Okay.
there. I know I have a board that must be well-versed in this because you're asking all the questions we anticipated. So masks are not required outdoors, and I mentioned the music and performances, they still follow the 6 feet of physical distancing is what we're getting from the CDC as well as Department of Health. I'm hoping we get some further guidance in the next few days. We're getting a little close here.
Brian,
the masks,
was there anything in addition to that, like at recess, about shared equipment? I know last year students couldn't share equipment, it had to be cleaned, or the guidance was in use.
Chris and I have not had, Mr. Ellis and I have not had that conversation this year. I have not seen any new Section 3 guidance as of yet. Is that correct? That's correct. So we have not received any new guidance with respect
And
to
that would have
that.
been the same in phys ed classes as well.
Yep.
Well, it's
So
the
it's a-
same thing with sanitizer too. The CDC has not had one reported case of anybody coming in contact with COVID through touch.
Correct. That's actually something that more data is clearly showing that. Yep. But we're still going to clean all the surfaces, Mr. Crandall. We're going to make sure everything's clean and neat. So. I will tell you, that's one of the things we actually we're doing cleaning for health well before COVID. And that was actually something we're doing here, I think, since the early 2000s. They've been doing cleaning for health. And then our testing protocol was actually going on where we have a company come in once a month and actually test. We actually upped that during COVID. But prior to COVID, we actually once a month actually had that company coming for a decade before. So we've always monitored our cleaning for health program here in the Fulton City School District. And I think it's a testament to why things look so good and the way they are and the pride that our team takes when they're cleaning the buildings.
Brian, is it correct that this slide pertains to the students and it doesn't address the attendance perhaps of an adult to a musical performance, if that is even possible, or to a sporting event, or how much of that would have?
Yeah, at the end of the year, all of our sporting events, we were maskless outside. And that's what we are. We're maskless outside. If kids are out playing, masks off. All of those kinds of things.
But I'm speaking of the adults that
Mhm.
might attend, if they're allowed to. Do we know that? Yeah.
We haven't received any guidance that said they weren't. So at the end of we would end it with the same way with the end of the year. We had guests and things coming, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct? We had, yeah. Yes, there's no limitations at this point in time. If it's an indoor event, the physical distancing comes into play. So we'll have to work with that.
Would be 3 feet, or and with a mask?
We're still working through it right now. But yes, right now we were planning 3 feet and masks would be what we would be using. That seems to be the rule of thumb. And then we would do sign-ins if we ever had to do a contact tracing or anything like that. You guys are good tonight. All right, masks, we already went through these. The masks will be required for all individuals. Masks must be close-fitting, worn over the mouth and nose. Masks are not required for outdoor events. Masks will be required for all individuals when on buses, and mask breaks will be provided. I'm hoping, obviously over time, hopefully this will be less and less of a need, at this point in time. And again, hopefully if we get different guidance, we can reflect on those things. Next slide, please. Yep.
What do the numbers have to be for us to not wear masks?
For me, and again, I'm one member of this entire team, but as superintendent, what I'm thinking is that I want the Department of Health to be able to say to us, it's no longer highly recommended. That's what I want to hear.
But right now, the Department of Health shows for Oswego County 111 active cases.
Correct.
That's less than 2% of our population in Oswego County.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we're saying why can't we go without until it gets to a point where it becomes a problem? Or if that's not possible, then when can we discuss what a number would be for us to be without masks?
And I think that's fair, Jessica. I think what we need to do is I want some guidance from the Department of Health and the state's Department of Health. When we talk to the county Department of Health, they're as frustrated, as well. I mean, they haven't changed, none of their quarantining guidelines, for example, have changed from the state level. And they're not necessarily fully in alignment with the CDC guidance. And so there are a lot of different things. And so anytime, what I would say is if the numbers, if they stabilize and we plan, because it's what we did before, we meet with Dr. Morgan on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. We're meeting with him. And we're also meeting with the Department of Health, and I would say on a daily basis, pretty much. We were in contact with the Department of Health. We had a great relationship with them, and again, I think all districts did, but ours was special and unique. I believe they really worked with us to help provide some of the guidance to the rest of the other districts that they're working with. And so I would look to them, Jessica, and I agree to try to get a number that would help us. As I mentioned earlier in the report, there was a district that had announced that they were going to do choice, but they also made it clear that when it became a high, they'd immediately switch over. Well,
Right.
What you don't want, and what we're seeing, and I'm not sure because now it seems like there's not many going the other direction at the moment, but there was counties that one day they were on, one day they weren't, one day we don't want to do that to our kids, on, off, on, off, on, off.
I agree.
And so I think what we have to do is, and what we do is on a daily basis we look at it, but I would say every 2 to 3 weeks we should say this is where we're at right now, so that we can really get a baseline of where we're at, and we can always move backwards. As one of the doctors that we were working with said, you're better to be progressive and aggressive at the front end, as opposed to trying to be reactive on the other end. And I think our results last year, we stayed in because we tended to do some of those more aggressive things. We cohorted all the kids. I don't know of any other high school that cohorted all their high school kids. I mean, we did that, and that's why we stayed so long. There's no question in my mind. And we had some districts out there that didn't even have their 7th to 12th graders step in their buildings till February, April. And again, I don't know what their circumstances were, but we heard loud and clear, try to get our kids in as much as possible and keep them in. That was the other piece of this. And I think that's the part that, so I understand, and I want to be getting us back to where we want to be as quickly as possible, and I want to make sure that our kids are safe. I watch very closely what's going on in other parts of the country also. I tend not to just watch the region. We watch and watch when we see children in Florida and Texas and some other places that are being incubated. That's a problem for me. To me, one child, that's a problem. And I understand every situation is different, but there is no choice from 12 years old or 11 years old and younger. They can't get the vaccination right now, as of yet. So that's not a choice for those kids. They can't even get it if they wanted to. And in our county, I was on there too today when you said there weren't 11. I think isn't it 48.6%? I wrote it down somewhere. Of the county, Oswego County is actually vaccinated, I believe. Is that right, Jess? I wrote it down quick this
I
morning.
am on here right now, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think it was 48.6% when I took a quick peek this morning, which I thought was, I didn't realize it was that low. I actually thought we were in the upper 50s or low 60s. I actually thought that. And actually that wasn't the case. We're at 48.6%, I believe, this morning is what that indicated, of vaccinated. And at a meeting on Friday, 30% of kids between 12 and 18, according to the doctors that we were meeting with, are vaccinated in our county. And again, I totally agree with our speakers this evening that it's been open and available to all of those parents and families. But 30% is a pretty significant number. And I know it's going up. That's one of the other things that's heartening, is that it's going up, and it's going up across the country as far as the vaccinations and all of that. It's just taking some time. Unfortunately, these things became political as opposed to really trying to mitigate the situation. So I think you hear me saying, and we made adjustments. If you looked at what we did last year, what we looked like in September, I said to my team, if we look the same in September, in June, then we didn't do our job. And if you look at where we started, we went from 4 days a week to 5 days a week at the end of the year for our little ones. With our junior high kids and senior high kids, we went from 2 to 3 days, as much as we get in, but we added 45 minutes a day to the high school in the middle of the year, created a whole separate bus run for kids, I mean, at really negligible cost in that. So we didn't look the same at the end of the year, I guess is my point. And so I don't want us to look the same as we look right now at this moment on August 10th. I hope we don't look this way on September 15th. And then, and again, so we're going to work hard here to keep our mitigation low, keep it mitigated, keep us low, and hopefully that helps the rest of the county get off the list as well. So it's a great question. I mean, I grapple with this pretty much 24/7. It seems like all we think about. Other questions from board members? Jen?
So something concrete that has already happened that maybe, hopefully will put some parents like myself at ease too, because we hear it from our kids. Do you know how often they're allowed to have mask breaks? I know my own kids, now they're junior high kids, they don't pay attention to what's going on. In some classes they weren't given any mask breaks, some classes they were, so it was inconsistent. Maybe if we knew what the actual guideline was for Fulton, maybe we could, rest a little bit easier in
Sure.
regards to the mask breaks throughout the day.
What we can do, Jen, we have our mask break guidelines from last year.
Okay.
But I think that's a great point. We didn't really hear too much that they weren't getting them because they were kind of when kids needed them. Is when I was walking around in schools, I would see some kids would have them down for a few, but then I walk by, 10 minutes later and it'd
Okay.
be back up. So I could see that was a class, like take the mask break when you need to take it.
Maybe that's where the miscommunication
Yep.
came from, because I didn't hear that. I
Yep.
heard it just depended on the teacher and the school.
Yeah, Jerry
So
and Dan, can we
maybe
make
if we
sure?
had something written so we know.
Yeah, make note of that. And when we look, we'll pull our mask guidelines from last year, and we could make some more definitive guidance. So it's a little bit more broken out for that. It's a great point, Jen. Thank you. Physical distancing, I already mentioned the 3 feet, and then the 6 feet for music and PE and eating. I think eating is probably going to be one of our larger challenges, but we're going to figure that out. We did a good job with that last year. I believe we only had a handful of quarantines in that area. The daily health screening is on the next slide. We'll continue to do the PSW, that's our daily screening every day. Families will continue to use the daily online screening, and then the temperature checks for students will take place at school. So there's that piece right there. And we're thinking about if we can do the staffing, we can do it on the bus. We need to meet with Mr. Canane with the Golden Sun to see how that may work. Last year, you may not know it, but we had, how many, Jerry? About 8 to 15 maybe aides. that actually were picked up at their buildings at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning here at the junior high or the senior high, rode around, came back, did all the temperature checks, got off the bus, and then they'd go to the elementary school, get their aids, and they'd go out and they would do that. So that's one way we could go about it. It seems like we have a little more flexibility. We could do the temperature checks when they get off the bus at the school. It seems to be one of the strategies that can be used as well.
If you did them, Brian, temperature checks were taken, if students were getting on the bus though, and they're not with parents at the bus stop, how do you make sure the child goes back to the parent if you're not?
Yeah,
getting
so
on
what
the
we
bus?
did last year, we had, if a bus and the child said, or they were out there, what we would do is if the bus driver couldn't see them, or if they were around the corner, we actually had it set up that Mr. Henry or another person from the department would actually drive a van and go get the student and take them home. We would never have the child walk home alone. That was our strategy that we had in our reopening plan. Next slide, please. So this one is for me really one of the ones where I have the most concern about is the tracing and the quarantining. And when I've talked to a few people out there, they didn't realize that with the masks on or off, it does change the quarantines a little bit. And that's where the part of the concern I have is I don't want us bouncing in and out. The quarantines, I believe, can create some significant issues. And so these are the guidelines that we received from working with the Department of Health and others. And again, they're in the process of looking at their quarantining right now. The quarantine and isolation orders, they come from the Department of Health, not us. We assist with the contact tracing by providing the information by close contacts, the duration of exposure. That's why we're very clear about seating charts and making sure that we know who's got their mask on, mask wearing, all of those pieces. They ask every one of those questions. And I will tell you, Chris, from the back of the room there, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they say, did Brian have a mask on or not? And if Chris says the information we have is that he did not, Brian's automatic, he's going quarantine. Then if they have a mask on, they mitigate that more, they have more of a conversation. Isn't that correct? I wasn't the lead on this process. Is that correct? Okay. So that's one of the pieces, which is why this is kind of important. But I think this is a piece where school districts, we're not thinking a lot about this tracing and quarantining. What happens if you have half the class quarantined? Do you pipe them in, remotely into the class? We also know that doesn't work well, remote at the same time. So we're working through a lot of different components here. But my goal is I want to keep our kids in school 100% of the time. And so that's the goal. And then you can read the rest of these, but unvaccinated individuals who have been in close contact with a COVID positive required to quarantine. Individuals who are COVID positive required to isolate. The good news is if you're vaccinated, you're not quarantined, but you have to closely monitor your symptoms. And what's interesting is we had a situation, I know a person who, he thought he had just a bit of an allergy that day, and he was in a room with lots of people unmasked because they were all vaccinated. Turns out that that wasn't his allergies. It was actually, he was positive later that afternoon. So I think we all have to be aware of that with the breakthroughs. That's the other variable that's here, because even with a breakthrough vaccine, we're hearing it can shed and it can go to others. So that there's a lot of components to this thing. And initially with the mask, it helps me protect not necessarily myself, but actually the people around me. So it's and again, there's different ways. I don't know what I believe one thing one day. I read it all the different ways. I grew up in a medical model. There was an interesting battle at my brother's house last week. He and I going at it about this. So it's interesting, different perspectives. He's a physician, and we're bouncing back and forth, going at it pretty good like we were little kids again. So again, and he's highly intelligent. I mean, we really had some great conversation last week as well. So right now, but the quarantining and isolation is really a key here. Are there any questions about that?
Yeah, Brian, the last bullet. If that pertains to a staff member who tests positive and they're required to isolate, so then they can't be in person doing their job.
Yep.
Are the federal funds still covering their absence from work? Or
That would
do
be
they
a
have to
Miss
pay
Geithner
for it?
question. Great question, David.
There is no longer federal COVID leave provision, but there is New York State COVID leave. So if an individual is required to isolate or quarantine, that is covered by the New York State paid leave provisions.
When we met with the bargaining heads, that's one of the questions that actually came up this morning. So I know Jerry continues to get the most accurate and update to information with respect to that. So thank you. Stay at home when you're sick. Next slide. Or symptomatic. All students and staff must stay home whenever they're sick or have symptoms. Return to school, work protocol. We're still working on those protocols. Again, no guidance from the state, so we're working with what we had last year, and we'll work through what that could look like. Practice good hand hygiene as well. And then the contact tracing, just a different way of looking at that. So for students on the left there, it shows vaccinated, no quarantine unless symptoms, unvaccinated, quarantine required. Staff, vaccinated, no quarantine unless symptoms, and unvaccinated, quarantine required. So that's kind of a basic framework there as well. And then we plan to communicate tomorrow through all media platforms, and obviously continue to monitor things very closely. As you saw earlier in the slides, New York State is indicating they're going to send us information. They didn't say, so they sent us a letter indicating they're going to send us information. So that's a little frustrating. So hopefully in the coming weeks, days, I hope it's days, we get more information so we can make adjustments prior to opening. And hopefully if the numbers go down or they adjust, we can make some of things. I think we'll take into, I wrote down a lot of notes here this evening with respect to really trying to get a little bit more of a tightener about when we could look at as a baseline to move away from these masks and move into a more normal choice type of environment. Obviously a family can always have choice, you know, down the road. That's where we want to get. And I understand that and I respect that. You know, in my 31 years doing this, whoever thought we'd be having this conversation. And I know the bottom line is, you know, they ask, what's the most important job of a superintendent? I still remember the interview. And, you know, everybody thinks it's the academics. It's not. It's actually that the answer to that question is making sure you have a safe and secure learning and teaching environment. I mean, that's actually the first thing, because if you don't have that, we can't have the rest. And I want our kids to get back in school. And prior to the meeting, I'll share one final thing. I got an email with respect to our early college high school and the job shadowing. If those of you who may have been in the room, you may have heard me say. But one of the parents wrote to Sean Broderick today and just commented, what did he say? My daughter's face was lit up when she came back from her job shadowing experience. And I just was like, this is why we do this. We're the only school district in this county that has not only one early college high school, but two. And that's where kids are going to walk out with degrees, job shadowing experiences. They are going to be the most marketable, community-ready, job-ready kids out there. And I'm so proud. But when I read that today, I'm like, that's what this is about. And I want to see the lit-up face down the road here, and not hopefully very long down the road. But that made my day. That was the best thing that kind of happened to me today, was getting that email. I don't know if other parents here, if your kids are in that program, but it was just so fun to hear that. So with that, are there any questions?
I just have
Jen?
one last question. It just occurred to me, I saw that the students are going to have a full schedule, which they did last year, but no specials.
Oh,
right?
no,
They
full-
didn't have phys ed. Are they moving classes? Like, are they actually going to go
Yep.
to the gym for physical education, go and move classes?
We will be back to reality of that real world. And that's a great point, Jen. Thank you.
Yep.
They will be moving through the hallways. We will be moving through, changing classrooms. How many periods? Was Donna here? 8 periods? Is that how many you have now? 8 periods. So we'll have an 8-period day. It'll be right back to what we were looking at before. So
That's good.
that's a great point, and I should have really pulled that out, so thank you. Any other questions? Regan? So right now, we're in the process of looking at that. Our goal is to get everybody back in. Obviously, if students have any medical types of issues documented, we could provide At the high school level, we have our alternative program, which is much smaller. We could work with that. We have tutorial programs. We are exploring a couple of options that are available through BOCES, 7th through 12th grade. Those would be year-long commitments. I personally think everything we can offer here is better, but that's my opinion. And BOCES does a great job, but I believe we can do some things here uniquely. Right now, there's not a full-fledged remote opportunity that we're putting together. Our goal is to have everybody back in school, but as I said, we have the opportunities that we're exploring. There's no elementary that's really defined yet. BOCES is exploring that. Each of the superintendents has asked to have that explored and looked at. So that's where we're at right now. I mean, obviously, we'll get a better read on that over the next couple of weeks. But the goal is getting everybody back, and that's what all that stimulus funds is all about. It's about getting kids back in school. But I want to make sure there's safety as well. So.
That is an option for parents. When will that information be available to them so they know the process to, like if they need a medical?
Yeah, what I would say is, as we put it, if they have questions, if they have kids that have medical issues, if they would contact us directly through their principal, and we'll be working with our principals tomorrow, and we'll have more discussion about that before putting anything out like that. But we actually had a conversation today. Our guidance counselors really have a pretty good handle here at the high school level about which kids really had some significant either family issue or personal medical issue, and we could look at those programs as well that way. So. Any other questions on that? Of course, my agenda is buried here. 1 second. I believe it's capital project, right? It is. Dan, could you, I guess the TV turned off on you. Everything turned off. Our capital project, if you, we've started, and thank you to Mr. Carroll for filling in last week and doing the daily updates. I feel like I got to step up now a little bit more, but he was providing the rake-in reports. I don't know if you've enjoyed those or not, but the actual checklist where they actually tell you the weather of the day and what it was doing. But on our website, I don't know if Dan can get there or not, if you go to the Fulton City School District website, you go to click under district, and you click on capital project, you can actually see photographs. And what we've been doing is uploading photographs on a weekly basis. So you click on Volney, you can go back to July 6th, and you can actually see pictures of them just removing the pavement out. And then if you fast forward over the weeks and look at this past week, you will see the most amazing cement walks that are now in place. They look so much better, and they're not up and down and tripping hazards and whatnot. You'll see all the new curbing is in, the pavement is in up there, is absolutely amazing. The junior high, you can see the same thing, series of pictures. There's an example. If you want to, that looks like the junior high from my eyes this far away. The new doors on the back of the building went in. This was one of my favorite pictures. That's from the top of the building that they took the other day. So you can go through, and so anybody in the public can actually look and see the pictures over time, and they can actually see the story of the buildings and what's been going on with the site work. So it's
I appreciate that at Valney to see that there's actually a drop-off for students and they're not having to cross into traffic, that they are going right to a sidewalk directly that takes them to the building.
Yep.
It just did my heart good to see, as well as Lanigan.
Oh, yeah. Yep. No, the work that this board has supported is really good work. This is infrastructure that needed to be done. If you haven't been near the junior high, we found that there wasn't enough foundation, which is why everything was going. There was a lot of sand. There's a couple of feet of stone around now, and it's looking absolutely amazing. I was shocked when I got back yesterday. I was watching the pictures, but they didn't even do them justice. So they are on time. We had I participated in a capital improvement update this past Friday virtually. I was able to listen in on the team. Ms. Griffin was also, I believe, present at that meeting. They are indicating that the 20th, they are thinking they will still hit that date for Volney as well as the junior high. So we seem to be in good spot with all of our work at this point in time, and hopefully Mother Nature cooperates with us over the next week or two, allowing us not to get too much rain. But things are really coming along, and I think the community is going to be very pleased. And also, there's going to be a drop-off zone at the junior high as well. So,
I'm pleased with the contractors. They've been very attentive. That's not always the case, and it's been, I hate construction, but this project, and I don't want to jinx it, but we've been very blessed with very attentive contractors, and they're paying attention to those due dates, and they're really working well on our behalf. And I want to mention, it was a great catch out here, or not out here, over at the junior high, when they caught that, as they started to remove pavement from the driveway, that the other parking lot that we didn't plan to do was actually in as much need of replacement, and so that got caught, and it probably saved us money, I think, in my opinion, by doing it now.
yep.
So I'm grateful that they caught that, and they brought it right to the district's attention.
Yeah, when they were cutting out along the curve, up down at the bottom, they realized that there was no foundation under there, and it was just going to go bad within a year or two. And it was a $32,000 increase, and we had plenty of money available in the projects. So that was a very good move. So, yep, we've been blessed so far.
Yes.
And we're not going to jinx them. They're doing a great job, and I look forward to seeing the final project completed in the next couple of weeks as far as ready to go.
And everyone's been
in.
very helpful to any questions that have come up from the district side, I think.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah,
we-
our
we would do
Chase
that.
partners have been also a good choice by the board when they selected Chase as our project manager. We've so far so good. My first capital project, this seems to be going quite well. So hopefully it'll continue our momentum. So thank you. That's the conclusion of this. Oh, no, it's
Nope,
not.
you have one more.
I have one more, don't I? On Monday, school resource officer, special patrol officer. I had a question today. It's both. It's because it's the civil service job description, it's special patrol officer / school resource officer. It allows us to make sure we hit the civil service description that's in the Fulton or city of Fulton. And then SRO is the role. They also have some other roles that are defined in there, so the SRO is one of those roles. So it's both. We had a team the other day. It had a range of individuals that were from the original committee. We also had a student who joined the committee who was pivotal in the questioning, so she was terrific representing students. Chief Westbrook will be extending the offer to one of the candidates, hopefully, and that person will accept, which I think he will. And then what we would do is on the 24th, we don't hire the person. The person is hired through the police department, the Fulton Police Department, but the board approves the memorandum of agreement, and that will come to the board on the 24th. Chief Westbrook and I spoke again today. Ms. Geithner and I and Ms. Chief met the Thursday, July 30th, I think it was, and just to go over and kind of iron out some of the details, update the MOU from the past to bring it up to current expectations. And he'll be forwarding to us that hopefully tomorrow. He and I spoke today, and we'll bring that to the board to the next board meeting. And so we will have, I anticipate, an SPO, SRO or in the Fulton City School District on September 2nd when we have our staff in. That person will be joining us.
And I just want to compliment our student representative, was outstanding. I have to tell you that she represented her entire student body. She understood and was very clear in some of her questions that the student body is very diverse. And I was very proud of her, and the feedback that she provided, I don't think, she probably did better than I did. She really was outstanding, and I appreciate that she stepped up and gave her time. She was actually on vacation with her family, but was thrilled to be part of the interview committee.
Just so you know, there were 7 applicants. That one of the preferences of the committee was that they had been a previous City of Fulton police officer, and also that they were a member of the community. Those were two pieces that were extremely important to the committee, and also people that could have a relationship. So we ended up inviting four for interviews. One withdrew this past Friday because that person got another job, I guess, of some sort. So we interviewed three individuals, and then one of those individuals was deemed the best match for the Fulton City School District, and hopefully we'll hear from Chief tomorrow, and then I can let you know in backup, just to let you know who that person is. And then what we would do is we'll do the MOA or MOU on the 24th. So I'll be through all that. It's been a long year without having an SRO position, but I think I appreciate the board's commitment to following a process from the state that we did follow that had been enacted in 2018. So it was a new process for all parties. And I think what it did was it allowed us actually to come back to where and reinforce what we knew was we had a very strong relationship with the police department and the Fulton of the city of Fulton. They are truly great partners. And I'm looking forward on this next voyage, next journey with them as we've reformed this position, utilizing retired officers in that role. So thank you. I believe that's the end of my report this evening.
All right.
Thank you.
Would someone move item 4.01, please? Any discussion?
Yes.
What is the process for identifying the books that are accessible? I mean, that there are quantities, so
Yeah.
you don't have the answer.
Yeah, I can look into that. A lot of those books were in storage over at Erie Street. There were boxes and boxes of books that haven't been touched for years. But I can check and get a verification about what's in those. Yep. No, we had a lot stored at Erie Street at one time.
Well,
and
it
then-
says Lanigan, so I mean, do we know why?
And
it
the
says-
Lanigan Book Room, I didn't realize it was Lanigan's Book Room. They actually did a clean out this spring. They were going through that as they were looking at space and things like that. And these were books that apparently were not being used or had not been used. But I can verify that with Mr. Hendrickson.
All right, so any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passed 700. Item 5.01. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passed 700. Item 5.02. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passed 700. I'd like to ask my colleagues if you would be interested in batching items 6.01 through 6.21. Discussion on any of those items, and I'll give you a moment to look in case there's something there. Are we all good? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passed 700. Item .622. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Pass 601. Item 7.01 is board forum. Jen, would you like to start tonight? Oh, sure. I said Jen. But,
No, Mr. Crandall, go for it.
okay, Mr. Crandall, go for it.
Yeah.
Your microphone.
Whatever that means. I want to thank Brian for his presentations. I want to thank our speakers. They made some very good points. And that's it.
Thank you. Jen, would you like to go now?
I'm happy, I would like to say that, thank you for the opening update. I'm very happy that we are doing everything we can to get the kids back in school where they belong, along with the extracurricular activities and everything for them to be as normal as they can. And I look forward to, further discussion to just bring more and more on as safe as possible.
Yeah.
So I was thankful for this.
Thank you.
Yep.
Reagan?
I would like to thank Mr. Palvino and everyone else for the presentations. I do have a couple of questions for Mr. Palvino.
Sure.
Regarding the school readiness on September 1st and 2nd, will there be opportunities for like 10th graders to be able to go through the schools if they were not able to last year when they were freshmen, if they chose to do virtual?
I will connect with Ms. Parkhurst and I can better answer that question. All right?
Thank you.
You're
And then,
welcome.
I just want to double check about the opening protocol. Are those definite for when we'll be going back to school in September, or will there be more information?
Right now, if school were going to open right now, we would be following these protocols. Obviously, we'll monitor very closely, but this is the base we're working with right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good questions.
Very good. Thank you, Reagan. Mr. Cordone?
My microphone is the one making all that noise. just
Oh,
so you know. So, yeah, I don't know why that is, but the luck of the draw, I guess. I wanted to thank Mr. Palvino for the update. I also wanted to thank the community members that shared their concerns with us this evening. I think we all want the same thing, and we all share those very valid points that you made and understanding of them. So thank you for that. I want to congratulate all of the folks that were granted tenure on this evening's agenda. And I just wanted to just give a quick update. I will send it in an email to Jean for distribution to the board from the Oswego County School Boards Association. We did meet at the end of July, and we kind of mapped out a couple of events that the whole group, and that group represents every district in the county. There's a representative, a board member from each component board that represents. We are planning, just the more immediate one is we're trying to plan an event to welcome all new board members, but for the way we did kind of a social event that we did a couple years ago before the pandemic. So I think that was the first event. Well, I don't have a date yet, but I think Donna Blake, who's our president, is working on that. And we did elect all the same officers. So, but I'll share the rest of the details with everyone. I'll send it to Jean.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Mrs. Abelgore?
Thank you for giving us all of the information thus far, as it will probably change tomorrow, right, Mr. Palvino? It's always a little bit overwhelming when we're starting a new year, but I do want to remind everybody that we are definitely doing our best to keep our kids in school and as safe as possible. And as much as they hate the masks, those of us who work in school districts, we hate the mask just as much. So it is not just our school district that's dealing with this, and I do hope that our parents and our students are as flexible with us as they have been through this entire pandemic, because the kids really have raced to the top of the bar with everything that they've had to deal with. I look forward to looking at the buildings and seeing the final product of our new driveways and safety measures that are being put into place for the students being dropped off. And I hope that everybody gets a little bit of time to enjoy the rest of summer. And Mr. Cordone, thank you so much for the update on the Oswego County information and for taking that lead again this year.
Thank you. Mrs. Papalardo?
Okay. Jen, Megan, thank you. We hear you, and I'm very appreciative that people in our community are coming and speaking, because I know that it takes a lot of courage to get up there and say something. So thank you for being here. Mr. Palvino, thank you for the updates. Thank you for some clarification, and Robin, we had some really good conversations. As most of you know, I'm new to the board, so I definitely had a lot of questions regarding some of the things that were on the agenda tonight, and they helped clarify those for me. I drive by Volney every day. It looks amazing, looks awesome. Meant to walk up to the junior high last night and got sidetracked talking to people, so hoping to make my way over there sometime this week while my daughter's at soccer camp. And I can't even tell you how excited I am that they are back to sports and getting, you know, ready for their fall seasons. Also, Olivia, my oldest, she's going to be a sophomore. She is participating in the early college high school program, and she did job shadow yesterday, and I brought her and one of her girlfriends home, and we had an amazing conversation about their experiences there. They were there for the full day. I asked them if they would go back and do it again, and they said in a heartbeat. I think that Mr. Murray and Mr. Broderick are doing a phenomenal job with the kids doing that, and I think it's kind of a best kept secret, and I hope that we can get the word out to more kids, because I know that a lot of kids that missed that this year was the first year the health sciences was offered, and we've had the technology one in the past, but a lot of the kids that have, you know, missed that starting point have said, oh man, I wish we would have had that, I would have been interested in doing that. And so I think that maybe it would be good for some of those current students to talk to interested students for next year and keep the participation up, because it's awesome. And they're graduating with 37 credits, which is huge. So she took a summer class the past 3 weeks, and they're just finishing their job shadowing and their capstone, and then they're done. And I'm just really impressed with it. So I'm glad that we have that partnership with Cayuga Community College. So
Thank you.
yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. So that's it.
Mrs. Lyons.
I really can't say much because you all said it, but my grandson also did that. He was over there, and I picked him up one day, and he just loved what was going on over there, and was pleased to think that he was going to leave with college credits also. I just want to thank Brian and his team for their visibility throughout everything the last 18 months. You've been so upfront with everybody about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and I just appreciate what you've done. That's it.
Thank you. I think my colleagues have covered everything, but I would also thank our residents. Thank you for coming tonight and giving us the opportunity to hear your thoughts. It helps. It's better than hearing that somebody has thoughts that they don't share with us and they share with other people, and we get it second or third hand, so it's always good to hear it firsthand, and thank you for that. I know you had to take time out of your evening to be here with us. And everyone's pretty much said everything, so I'm not going to keep you any longer. And now we're at our second public forum, so if anyone would like to address a topic that was on tonight's agenda, you may.
I have a question,
Okay.
kind of based off of Pepelardo's number question. Do we have a target in mind, making it too low, what's that number goal, or do we have in 2 weeks we will revisit this?
Well, we're going to,
30 days?
we'll revisit. on a weekly basis we will, but what I was planning on doing was every 2 weeks, we'll take another good look and look at the data. And as I said, we speak to the Department of Health every single day. And, I mentioned, one district, if we move into the red, well, red's to our south now in Onondaga. So they're looking at red, and they still use yellow. Last year it was yellow and red. Now it's high and substantial. I guess they changed the words to do the same thing. And so I'll ask and work with the Department of Health and other supers to say, we all need to get a baseline so there's some consistency too. Because the last thing we want to do is play off each other. That's not good either. We have a lot of mobility in Oswego County. A lot of kids come to our districts from around. So we tend to try to really be pretty consistent. So I would say is, I really want to get some more direction, and the team will do that. But we will look every 2 weeks or so. We will always look to see what's going on. That's what we did last year. We won't wait 10 weeks and those kinds of things. This isn't one of those things. This isn't changing the schedule. It's not, a little different.
My final question would be, you said you had measurable posts from last year.
Measurable.
Measurable markers, including the safety protocols. I would love to see that data once it comes together, if that would be something you would bring to the public.
Yeah, it was more measurable. It was just, we just kept a good look at the number of quarantines, keeping kids in. It was really that kind of data. It wasn't, it was more that, how many kids, we looked at our attendance rates, how many kids were coming in person, those kinds of things.
So not which mitigation.
No, we did not. I may have been confusing, I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay. All right, did anyone else wish to address a topic from tonight's agenda?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Am I allowed to?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Why
Just
would I
really
not?
quick, because I'm confused. I'm confused. So maybe this will help you understand and help me understand too. So it says, so we hear the team and I know that you have a huge say.
Yep.
Mr. Ells is our COVID
Mhm.
coordinator,
Sure.
and I'm not sure of the specific title.
Yeah.
But who's on the team and how do you come up, like, who's involved with that?
So when I speak of my team, it would be, my core team is Ms. Geithner, Mr. Carroll, Mr. Lisi is a big part of that, obviously, with the technology and all those other operational pieces. Ms. Nichols, I think down there at the end of the table, there she is, from the financial aspects, as well as with the COVID piece, obviously, Mr. Ells was a part of, that's the core. The next layer of that is all of our administrators. So that next layer, we meet with them, is our principals, our directors, all of those different layers. We try to get input from our bargaining units. We meet with our bargaining units on a monthly basis. So that's the teachers' bargaining unit, the administrative bargaining unit, the clerical bargaining unit, custodial, so on and so forth. Those are all the different levels. And at the same point, last year we also collected survey data 3 times, I believe, last year. We also did, last year we had a lot more, we had 145 pages of guidance from the state last year, along with 23 pages from somebody else. I can't remember who, what, and where, but we had lots of pages. And we were able to then have those community forums where we had those great conversations because we had a lot of tangible stuff to put our hands on to this year we did not. So we haven't done as much of that, but what we did do is we took all of that survey data throughout the course of the year and really said, this is what our community wants, which is our kids back as much as possible, keep them in, so on and so forth. So that's our team. And then the extensions of those teams are, I look at my colleagues that are superintendents because I like to get a read on what's going on in the rest of the county and what they're experiencing. They're a good litmus test. The other group is our Department of Health. You know, they are true partners with us. We did over 11,000 vaccinations here at GRB this year, which I'm very proud of. And, you know, I think it's a testament. I think it's 94% of just, I'll have that thing up, but I think it was 94%, something like, it was a very high percentage of our community members 65 and older were vaccinated. A lot of them were done here. So I'm really proud of that.
That was great.
So those are the kind. So that's the extent, and then Dr. Morgan
I was going to say
is
Dr.
also
Morgan, don't forget.
extension. So you hear lots of different layers. I also watch our colleagues to the south. I like to watch what goes on in a different county. So a little different approach down in Onondaga County than here. And then, so that's my team. So it's, and then obviously these individuals sitting around this table, as well as you as members of the board, are also a part of that team, you know, as well. You're out there as we're coming and making these presentations, asking these questions, representing the community, asking, that's a big part of this too. So it's all those different layers is how we do it. And that's why I was so pleased. We haven't had a lot of parents come forward. So thank you for being here.
Well, that's not quite true. We did
Not a
when we
lot.
had the forums.
Yeah,
Not
the
this
forums,
year.
yes,
Right,
but I mean
so
at these forums.
It's a little
yes.
bit different this
Yep.
year, so.
That's right.
And
It's
it's
different.
early yet.
Yes, it is. It is. The other piece is, I don't know if it's a mitigation factor or not, but I tend to be very visible, and parents have gotten used to me being at different events and opportunities, and a lot of people will talk to me there too. So there's lots of different places, hopefully, and we'll do more surveys and things like that as well. So
And Jen, I want to thank you. You're following in my footsteps because I always tell him he needs to speak up, explain to the community what he's talking about. So you've got another Lynn here.
Thank you.
good.
Sometimes I just miss things too, so I don't know.
All right. If there's nothing else, Then I would ask my colleagues to move item 7.03.
Move it.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Pass 700. After, is 5 minutes long enough, folks, for a break? A 5-minute break, we'll
make
come
it
back
2
and
weeks.
finish our work tonight. Thank you to those that chose view tonight. We appreciate it. Welcome back. We are now back in public session, and I would ask someone to move item number 7.04, please. All right, Dave. And second? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed and abstentions. Pass 700. Item 7.04, please. Lynn, who was second? Jess? Oh, Brenda. Sorry, I don't, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed and abstentions. Pass 700. And I thank you all for a good evening's work. And again, to those that will watch this evening, thank you very much.